Lahore sweltered under the relentless February sun. Even inside the old, thick-walled Haveli, the heat clung like a second skin. I, Zara, sprawled on the cool, worn floor in my room, desperately trying to ignore the suffocating heat and finish my Urdu homework. The Haveli had been in our family for generations, passed down from my grandfather to my father. He'd renovated it in the 90s, trying to erase the shadows of the past, but the weight of history remained like an unwelcome guest. The Haveli whispered stories. Whispers of sudden deaths, some natural, some decidedly not. Whispers that some rooms held secrets best left undisturbed. As a child, I'd always been the sensitive one, the one who felt the cold whispers against my skin and saw things that went unseen by others. A flickering light in the deserted hallway, a child's laughter echoing from an empty room. These were my childhood companions. That's why I wasn't surprised when sleep paralysis gripped me for the second time in my life. It was 3 a.m., the witching hour, and the oppressive quiet of the Haveli felt heavy in my chest. I woke with a gasp, my body a lead weight, my eyes wide open but unable to move a muscle. Panic clawed at my throat as I lay there, trapped in my own body. Then I saw it. At the foot of my bed, bathed in the faint blue glow of my nightlight, stood a tall, emaciated figure. It was black, not a color of darkness, but an absence of light, a void that sucked in the surrounding light itself. It was impossibly thin, its form like a wisp of smoke taking a humanoid shape. The most terrifying detail, however, were its eyes, or rather the lack thereof. Two white voids stared out from its inky head, devoid of emotion, devoid of life. Despite my paralysis, a primal fear flooded through me. I knew with a chilling certainty that this entity was malevolent. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, my breaths coming in shallow gasps. I tried to scream, to call out, but my voice was trapped within my paralyzed form. The figure remained motionless, yet its presence seemed to press down on me, suffocating me. Minutes stretched into an eternity as I lay there helpless and terrified. Slowly, ever so slowly, the pressure lifted. The entity began to fade, the blackness of its form thinning until it became a wisp, a shadow, and then finally it was gone. Relief washed over me so intense it felt like a physical wave. I was able to move again, and I wasted no time. Throwing the covers off, I scrambled out of bed, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Fumbling for my phone, I checked the time. 3:14 a.m. The encounter had felt like an eternity, yet only 4 minutes had passed. Tears of fear streamed down my face as I paced my room, the echo of the entity's presence lingering in the air. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, to share the terror that had gripped me. But at this ungodly hour, the house was silent. My parents were in their room, my older brother asleep in his, and my grandmother, who usually slept lightly, remained uncharacteristically still. The silence in the Haveli seemed to amplify the fear gnawing at me. I knew this wasn't a dream. Sleep paralysis could explain the immobility, but not the entity. Not the pure, unadulterated terror that still clung to me. I sat back on the edge of my bed, trying to make sense of it all. My mind conjured up stories from my childhood, tales of a restless spirit, a jinn trapped within the walls. Was that what I had seen? Suddenly, a sound from outside my room caught my attention. A soft, rhythmic tapping. It was faint, barely audible, yet distinct. My heart lurched. It came from the hallway, specifically from the room at the end, the room that was always kept locked. My breath hitched in my throat. The locked room wasn't exactly a secret. It belonged to my great-grandfather, a man known for his eccentricities and rumored dabblings in the occult. After his death, the room had been sealed shut, considered off limits by everyone in the family. The tapping came again, louder this time. It was a deliberate rhythm, almost urgent. An unnerving curiosity battled with the terror still clinging to me. What if the entity, the thing I saw, was trapped in that room? Was the tapping a plea for help? Or something worse? The tapping continued, a metronome of dread echoing down the silent hallway. Fear gnawed at me, urging me to stay put under the meager protection of my room. Yet a morbid fascination bloomed alongside the terror. What secrets were locked away in that room? Was the entity I saw somehow connected? The tapping came again, followed by a low guttural moan. It sent shivers down my spine and goosebumps erupting all over my skin. This was no benevolent spirit trapped and pleading for release. This was something far more sinister. I knew I shouldn't get involved. This wasn't some childhood ghost story. This was something real, something dangerous. But the thought of that entity roaming free within the Haveli, the potential threat it posed to my family, was too much to bear. Taking a deep breath, I tiptoed towards my door, my hand trembling as I reached for the knob. My room was bathed in the soft blue glow of the nightlight, a stark contrast to the inky blackness of the hallway. I crept out, each step a silent scream on the old wooden floorboards. The tapping came again, louder and more insistent now. I reached the end of the hallway, the locked room looming ahead like a mausoleum. The brass doorknob gleamed in the darkness, a silent challenge. A cold draft washed over me, emanating from beneath the door. It carried with it the stench of decay and damp earth, a smell that sent a fresh wave of nausea rising in my throat. My heart pounded in my ears, a relentless drum against the unsettling silence of the house. I knew then that I couldn't open the door. It felt like a line had been drawn, a boundary between the known and the unknown. Crossing it would be venturing into territory I wasn't prepared for. But what could I do? If the entity was trapped in that room, wouldn't leaving it be worse? Wouldn't it find a way to escape eventually? Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I was alone, faced with an impossible choice. In the dim light, I noticed a faint inscription above the doorknob, etched into the aged wood. It was written in a language I didn't recognize, but the symbols seemed to writhe and twist, like living things. A sudden crash from downstairs shattered the tense silence. It sounded like something heavy had fallen. Panic erupted within me, replacing the creeping dread. My family. Were they all right? Without a second thought, I turned and bolted, the tapping and the stench fading behind me. I raced downstairs, fear propelling me forward with a strength I didn't know I possessed. Bursting into the living room, I found my family huddled together, disoriented and shaken. A vase, a treasured antique from my great-grandfather's collection, lay shattered on the floor. "What happened?" I gasped, my voice trembling. They looked at me, relief washing over their faces. "A loud noise woke us up," explained my mother, her voice laced with concern. "Are you all right, Zara? Why are you crying?" I collapsed onto the sofa, my legs giving way beneath me. Relief mixed with the lingering terror made my vision blur. I couldn't tell them about the entity, not yet. They wouldn't believe me. "Just a bad dream," I mumbled, wiping away my tears. My father knelt before me, his eyes filled with worry. But before he could press further, a new sound reached our ears. Soft at first, it grew louder by the second. A low, guttural moan, like the one from the hallway. Except this one wasn't coming from the locked room anymore. It seemed to be coming from everywhere, echoing through the Haveli, a malevolent presence filling the air. We all looked at each other, a shared fear etched on our faces. The locked room wasn't a prison. It was a cage that had just been broken. The moan crescendoed into a blood-curdling shriek, a sound that ripped through the Haveli, shaking the very foundation. We huddled together, frozen in terror, as the unseen entity announced its presence. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the lights and plunging us into complete darkness. Panic surged through me. In the suffocating darkness, the entity felt closer, its malign presence a tangible weight bearing down on us. A high-pitched giggle, chilling in its childish glee, echoed amidst the moans. Then a heavy thud from the hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized the entity was moving, searching. Despite the overwhelming fear, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. This was our home, and we wouldn't surrender it without a fight. "We need to get out of here," I shouted, my voice hoarse. But where? The Haveli was a labyrinth of rooms, and in the darkness it felt like an eternity to find the exit. My brother, always the practical one, took charge. We stumbled around, guided by instinct in the faint moonlight filtering through the windows. He fumbled with the front door lock, his hands shaking. Finally, with a groan, the door swung open. We spilled out into the cool night air, gasping for breath. Behind us, the moans and shrieks continued, a chilling soundtrack to our escape. We huddled together in the courtyard, the familiar warmth of the rising sun offering a sliver of comfort. We looked back at the Haveli, its windows dark and menacing. What do we do now? My mother's voice trembled. I didn't have an answer. Leaving felt like a betrayal, but staying felt like a death sentence. Just then a rooster crowed from a nearby coop. As the first rays of sunlight bathed the Haveli in golden light, the moans and shrieks abruptly stopped. An unsettling silence descended, thick and heavy. Maybe, my father said, his voice strained. Maybe the light. Maybe it doesn't like the light. A spark of hope ignited within me. We couldn't stay away forever, but perhaps with the dawn, we could find a way to fight back. The Haveli loomed before us, a silent sentinel holding an unknown horror within its walls. We had escaped the night, but the true battle had just begun.